Let's see. Okay. I'll wait for you. And for those who are just starting to come in now, welcome to Dr. Figma. My name is Bruno. I'm one of the doctors here at Friends of Figma Portugal. And today we're here to help you with your Figma issues. So you can treat this as a regular doctor's appointment, but for your design needs. So any question that you have, anything that you might need, just drop us a message on the chat or join us on the friends.figma.com, and you can join us with video and microphone and just chat with us. Topic for this month, main topic is variables and multi-edit, but anyone can just join and be part of the conversation. I see that Philippe is joining us. We also have, let's see if I can see everyone's names. Yevon, I hope I'm saying that one right, and Marina. Hi, everyone. So, if you guys have any questions, as I've been saying, don't forget to drop them in the chat or let me know. We do have some prepared questions, but the idea here is so that all of you can just join the conversation and we can help you solve your design issues. That's the whole point of a doctor's appointment, right? Oof. Philippe had to drop because live streams. So, Yevon, Marina, what brought you here today? You can drop your message on the chat. I'll try to make sure that everyone can understand. And while that's still turning on, I'm just going to grab here a little link to the live stream to share with everyone on social media. And sorry for the lack of background music, at least. So, Gavin has a question saying, I'm curious, why do design systems need so much broad color palettes? Okay, that's a really good question. Uh, okay, I think Philippe is already, your microphone is on, Philippe.
Hey Bruno, how are you?
I'm fine.
Bit dark,
Uh,
but
yeah, no worries. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the appointment here. I was going to start by actually answering Gavin's question. So, why do design streams need so broad color palettes? I think the correct answer is they usually don't. Right? Like, if you want to talk about color palettes, and for example, if we just browse really fast, for example, the Figma community here, and we just click on the design systems category, you're going to see that there's a bunch of different teams that work in different ways. The only reason that a lot of these default systems or bigger systems have a lot of colors is because they serve much more than a single brand purpose. But a design system can serve, for example, one single brand. So if you're like me, work in a company that has an internal design system and you need that like single brand to just kind of work, you're not really gonna have to create like, I don't know, 7 color tones and um, a bunch of hues and anything like that, right? Like if you look at the design system like this one from Space DS, which is one of the first ones that we have here, yes, they have a primary, a secondary, and they also have colors for things like semantics, danger, success, warning. They have concepts of opacity. It makes sense. And if you look at it, it's not that many colors. It's just a lot of brands and companies, for example, especially the bigger ones like Google and Microsoft or Apple, they create design systems that are made to multiple audiences, multiple brands, and those things they take a little bit of an adjustment or a re- or an I don't want to call it adjustment. I want to call it more of a enablement baseline for everyone, right? Like these are systems that are created for a lot of designers to use. And on a regular design system for a company that is smaller, you probably don't need one, right? For example, I'm just gonna clean this up here really fast because I actually don't want these things to be here. These are remnants of the last stream. Um, I think if we turn on our libraries, if you give me a second here, I don't know if I have all of them. Here we go. For example, we at Friends of Figma have a brand library. And our brand library doesn't have that many colors. It has, I believe, 7. Yeah. A black and a white color, 3 tones, cobalt, tangerine, and yolk, cocoa, and eggshell. And all our communication materials, all our mock-ups, all our templates are based on this very limited brand color palette. So color palettes are not necessarily need to be giant, and in fact, a lot of brands decide to keep them kind of concise to a certain extent. Now, you do benefit from things like if you do have a need for more or less contrast or create hierarchy between elements, a good grayscale palette is never bad, right? If you have something like a white background, my mouse just ran over, and you need to create some sort of degree of separation, having multiple tones of gray will allow you to create things like different levels in a system, right? And those levels can then kind of work better and will help you a little bit. So grayscales is something that I usually defend having a little bit more available color tones, even if you just use some of them very sparsely. But I would say that it's a good investment. Brand colors per se, if you look at big products like Instagram and other social media, you're going to notice that more and more those systems use less color and they focus more on color has meanings that are very important, like this is a link, this is an interaction, and then everything else is mostly black and white or grayscale. So you don't need a gigantic color palette to start building a design system. And I hope that helps. I see that you already answered. Thank you, but in any case, I hope that helped. Flip, since you are joining us with camera and video, would love to hear what you wanna chat about and what type of questions you have.
So I've been recently starting to study a little bit more of the variables.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of an early stage of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here just to learn a little bit more about it.
Okay. So variables are a really interesting tool and one that you can use for a lot of different things. Um, and there's some versatility in it. So right now they just got a few upgrades the last few months where typography variables also became more complete. Before you didn't really add those, and that actually makes them even more valuable. So give me just a second here to do something real fast. Okay. Sorry about that. When it's one doctor with no receptionist, someone has
It's
still
okay.
to share on social media. No worries. Okay, so for example, if you want to build a system nowadays for a simple product, and let's say that we are trying to build a very simple app or a couple of elements for an app. If we start with a basic thing like having a title, font, a let's say a paragraph font for content, and then we're going to have some sort of interactive or button or link style for typography, right? So we have a title, we have a paragraph, and we have some sort of interactive. In the past, you would only focus on doing this using styles, right? And you would build them here on the right with text, and you can still do that very easily, right? Like we're gonna get here, we're gonna say, okay, maybe I want my my body font to be a little bit like a 16 point regular font, with more line height because it's going to be cooler. And then my paragraph, and then that way my titles are bigger than my body text. And then my interactive, so buttons and things like that, should be a little bit bolder. So I'm going to put them in semi-bold so that when we build buttons and things like that, they look better. Some things that we can do to make, for example, variables work really well right now with typography, we can use these as complements to styles. So first things first, we have these three, which probably are great for, let's say, desktop, right? So let's try and understand how we can use variables to better build these styles, and then prepare them to also be ready to adjust for mobile, for example. So you can always start with clicking nowhere, opening your variables here. You're going to get a default collection. I'm just going to rename this one to Doctor's Collection, just because it's a good name. And first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to create number variables that will be used for the size of the fonts that we have for our system. So in this case, we want the title variable. We want a paragraph variable. And, oh, I'm missing an A. And we want a interactive variable. Now, these are just for the font size, and we're going to say that this is for the desktop. But we also want to create a version for mobile. So we're going to create a different mode here. And what we're going to do now is, based on the styles that we were building, we're just going to start getting some information. So I know that my fonts for both paragraph and interactive are 16 points, and for my desktop are 48. Let's say that on mobile, I want everything to be a little bit smaller while keeping some of them the same. So I'm going to keep my interactive at 16 because buttons still need to be relevant. I'm going to reduce slightly my font on the paragraph so I can cram a little bit more text. And then I'm going to also reduce my title fonts to 32 because I know that I want to keep those informations there. Now, when we do something like this, it means that we're generating variables with these numbers that we'll be able to use when we generate the style. So if we create a style for title and we want to play around with those measurements here, and I'm just going to do a quick thing. When you click on the font size, you're going to see that you have this little icon here that says apply variable. So we can just click on apply variable and choose title. So that way, if we want to create a style, which we can then click here and save that style as, in this case, title, we don't have to, like in the past we would, to create a title for desktop and a title for mobile, because now we can actually just switch the collection and it will change automatically. And this can be done for all font styles, so that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to come here, select my paragraph, apply the variable of paragraph font size. Same thing with the interactive. Apply my variable of interactive font size. I'm just going to reduce my line height here. And I'm going to create those styles. So paragraph and interactive. Yeah, it's applied. So what we did right now is we created a system that will allow us to create either components with buttons and titles and cards and things like that. So I can easily just take a few seconds to build, or a minute or so to build a little bit of a component here with a button. Let's just use the brand colors here just to make this. And then title and paragraph, I'm going to put them into an auto layout with less space between them. And then I'm going to create an auto layout for all of them. Add some padding. Reduce the spacing here, but keep it a little bit bigger anyways. And I'm going to add a little, let's put a little image here. And let's make this a card that we can then play around and see how it's going to look. So changing some colors. And I'm just going to make some rounded corners here. And in case you guys don't know, I know this is not the best practice, but you can always use the Lorem Ipsum plugin to just generate some content to fill this up. So in this case, I want to put like a 5-word title and a 1-sentence paragraph information here. Well, maybe 2 sentences would be better. There you go. I'm just going to make this be fill container instead of hug content because I want it to adapt to the width of the card. Probably going to reduce my corners on the card, and then I'm going to use another plugin to just load an image to my card. I'm going to use Nsplash, which is a very cool and easy to use photo stock plugin. Okay, got an image, and then click me button. Okay. With the use of variables, we can already do something really fast where we can have, I'm going to use just sections so that we can see how this works. We can have a desktop version and a mobile version without having to do much. So I'm just going to duplicate this section here and make this one mobile. And how you do it is you click the object, be it the section or the frame, and you look for the layer option. You come here where you have change variable mode. We can say that everything that exists in this space is a desktop. Everything that exists in this space here will have to be mobile. What happens is, since this is not using any variables, you don't get that. So you really need to make sure that you have an object inside that case where the variables work. So now we're going to say here that this is mobile, and it already adjusted the size of our variables here. So this is like one of the best things that you have now, where with typography variables, you can easily just do stuff like this, like font sizes, or in this case, we're going to create a new collection now. You can even do something like different modes. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to create modes for dark and light, and we're going to create modes for brands, because those are great examples of how you can still use a simple system like this and be able to produce a bunch of styles, a bunch of designs without having to reinvent your components or your designs correctly. So we're going to go back to the variables. I'm just going to select all of these 3, and you can actually group them into subcategories. So I'm going to call these typography. And now we're going to do a different thing. We don't want to change by desktop or mobile, so we're going to create a new collection. So we're going to go to more options, create collection, and in this one, we're going to call it brand collection. So what we can do with this is, for example, and Yevon, might be interesting for you that we're talking about color palettes and everything like that, is that you can easily create collections that use variables to change color modes, font sizes, dimensions, everything that you want via brand. So in this case, for example, I want to start with one thing. I want to start with the brand font. So the first one that we have here is Friends of Figma, so I'm just going to call it FoF. And then for the second one, let's say that we're doing, I don't know, Philip, do you have a brand that you want to name here? We can call it whatever we want. So
I don't know. So like exploring. Let's go.
okay,
Exploring
no
brand.
worries. Exploring brand, let's gonna be like that. So for example, in this case, work sans is the font for Friends of Figma, and on the exploring, let's say that it's gonna be, well, Inter is not that different, so I'm gonna do Times, which is a classic font. So what happens now is that these are basically little snippets of code, let's call it like that, which are text strings that you can then assign to the styles without having to destroy your styles. And you're going to have some more exploration capabilities to your style. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to duplicate these. I'm going to bring them both to desktop. And I'm just going to do brand, the FoF ones here. And here we're going to put the exploring brand really fast. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the modes. On the modes, we're going to select what we want. And we're going to eventually get those brands there. I'm I'm just going to put them both on desktop. That way they stay the same size. But now let's test out how we change via brand. So what you can do is you can open your styles and edit them like they already are set and built. So you don't really need to destroy your text styles or anything like that. You can just come here to the font type, which can give you whatever fonts you want. But instead of selecting it from the list, you can come here and select apply variable. We already have our variable brand font here, and it's going to apply to the title. Same thing here. We're going to go with brand font. And then here on interactions, apply variable brand font. What this does is that now we can come here and select the brand collection on the modes. And on this one, we have Friends of Figma. Fine. On this one, we have the collection of exploring. And all of a sudden, our fonts are changed. And we didn't have to do, again, any new style for a new brand or anything like that. We kind of just adjusted really softly our system, and it's already working for much more than just the basics. And we designed the card once, we applied a couple of elements once, and we are fine. Okay, but brands don't just change in color, in fonts. They also change in colors. They also change, for example, in images. So brands have different visuals. So how can we also do that? So using the same collection, we're going to create another variable, but not for color. Then we're going to call it brand color. And in this case, we can just come here and we can select whatever color we want. I'm just going to steal one of the Friends of Figma colors, in this case, the blue, to get the code here. In case you guys don't know, if you want to just get the eggs code or the RGB when you're selecting a color from a brand, if you have a library that is on, you can just get the color from this little drop down here that allows you to select colors available on the page, local colors, or brand style guide in my case, or whatever collections you have ready, or styles that you have libraries open. And then for exploring, let's say that we want, like, I don't know, exploring, it's giving me a little bit of like mountainy thing. So I'm going to put it a little bit of a green here, a little bit more saturated. Okay. With this, we already created a really cool thing, which is brand color, really simple. But if you don't want to have to be applying the brand color for everything and taking a lot of time, you can use Figma's selection colors that show you all the colors. Click the styles that you want to change. On the libraries, you're going to see that now we have brand color, that it's different from everything else, because since it's it's a variable and you're selecting two different collections, it's not going to give you a preview because it's different on both. So it doesn't really know what color should show. So just telling you that there's a brand color here, you select it, and immediately the color changes on the second one. Right now, we're going to keep doing it like this, but we're going to actually improve this in the next step, where I'm going to show you how to use also light and dark modes and how we can probably use colors applied between variables and styles. But lastly, these images, like different brands use different images. We don't really want that. So we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to copy one of these and pull it outside. And we're going to create a component for this image. And I'm going to call it brand image, just for the sake of clarity here. And we're going to create a variant for that brand image. Right now, we're going to go to our property that was created. We're going to call it brand, and we're going to call it FoF for the first one, and for the second one, we're going to call that variant exploring. Let's see if I write it correctly. So what happens now is when you get here, if you want to choose different brands, it gives you brand and a little drop box here that you can select whatever brands you want. So that's great. Simple enough. Cool. Now let's do this. Let's just change our FoF brand, because the image actually would be better if it was something more related to Figma. So I'm just going to go and add something with technology, maybe some sort of smartphone or anything like that. Great. Someone using a laptop. Works really well. And what we're going to do now is we're going to copy this image and we're going to replace these two. And actually, you guys are not going to be able to see it. You can do paste to replace, that it's going to just replace the images. If you don't know the shortcut, it's Command Shift R or Control-Shift-R, I think, on Windows. I would have to double check that. But this is still not what we want. We want the image to change per brand. So what we're going to do, when we go to variables again, we can use text strings, so basic text strings, to decide if an image like this, a component, is selected for one or the other. So we can literally call it brand image, just because it's easier to find this like this, and then write the same name that we gave to our variants. So in this case, FoF and exploring. By doing this, we are creating basically a selector that automatically changes per collection. So if you select both your images, now here where you have the option to select what image you want, you can also apply a variable. And if you come here and look for assigned variable, then you apply brand image, it's going to get you the image that is being selected based on that little text string. So with a few options, from font sizes to the name of your brand font, the color of your brand color, your brand color, and then a name of an image, in this case for the selection, we can easily have the same components work for multiple brands with very little effort. And this is already getting really good, but we want to expand what we can do with this. So I'm actually just gonna really fast replace these ones up here. Or better yet, if we don't want this to take this much time and we're like having to go back and forth, what we can do is we can just come here, make this a component. That way, whatever we do here will change on all of them. I'm just gonna kind of paste to replace all of these and this one here. And that way, all of them are already using the correct collections with the information that we want from the variables. And even if we want to test out, okay, instead of having just FOF desktop exploring, or we can do this, we can just duplicate the top ones. And now we have this with still the, instead of having the FOF brand, we can have the exploring brand, and you can see how they work on both desktop and mobile. Okay, so simple enough, I think. Any doubts so far? Anything that you're already done or not? Are you catching up or not? Would love to get some comments on the
So far,
chat
so
too.
good.
Great. Just doing a little check on how's everything here on our YouTube, seeing if there's anyone. No one's doing anything on the chat. It's fine. They will probably ask that later. So now let's talk about, for example, how do we do this with light and dark mode, right? So for light and dark mode, we would have to create yet another collection. And in this case, usually what happens is that you create a collection based on a brand's light and dark mode, but we're going to create something that acts a little bit more globally because we're simplifying the colors that we'll work with. So I'm going to call it theme collection, just so that we have a good name to find it. Going to create variables, and we're going to go for color variables. In this case, we want to use color variables for the text, or let's put it like primary text. We're going to create another color variable for secondary text. And we're going to create a variable for background. Okay. And this is going to be the light theme, and this is going to be the dark theme. So what would we expect? On a light theme, most likely we have a dark font for our text color. So I'm just going to put here black, and then our secondary text, something that is a little bit softer. So I'm going to put a gray, and then I'm going to keep the background white. While on dark mode, I want my primary color to be fully white. The secondary color for text, make it a little bit more gray, but not as harsh as on dark modes, because on light modes you're gonna notice more fluctuations of light because of the dark background. When you have light modes, you need more fluctuations of the color for it to really work. And this is what we're gonna be applying to our designs right now. So we can come here to our card, to the main component, and now on the main component we're going to start applying colors the way that we feel fit. In this case, we want this to be primary text. We want this one here to be secondary text, and then our background is going to be the background color. just doing this already allows us to do something really cool, which is, oh, actually, I'm missing this one. This one should also be, well, actually, this one needs to be CTA color, so I'm going to add another color here. So I'm going to have it as a interactive color, interactive text color. And this one is actually going to be white on both modes because we think that it works better in terms of contrast with the colors that we have. So with this done, we apply the last variable here, interactive text, and now we can again just duplicate all our things, and we can easily just come to our collections theme and apply dark mode, and we have all of our cards in dark mode. Again, it's one component. We have three collections of literally just text strings and little information that is already making our system work for brand 1, brand 2, light mode, dark mode, desktop, and mobile. And we can even go further. One of the only variables that we haven't used yet, and we can go back to the doctor's collection because it's the one where we have desktop and mobile, is we don't really use the toggle properties. And we can talk about what those do right now. So what we can do is we can use toggle properties to show or hide elements using the layer option where you can select visibility. In this case, what we want is that on mobile, the image doesn't show. So we want that the image is false on mobile, but true on desktop. And now that we do this, on our component, we can just come to the image, and on the layer level where you have the visibility, you do shift click, and you can now apply a variable to your object. And in this case, we can choose image, and now it should do the job of applying desktop and mobile. For some reason, on this one, it's not applying. I don't know why, but I'll figure that one out in a sec. So give me just one moment also to do another thing, which I haven't done, which is I don't want this to be UGG. I want to be fixed. I'm going to make it go like 320 pixels. And I'm going to make all of these things, both the image and everything else, to be fill containers. So that way they don't break as much. Let's figure out what happened here. I don't know what happened here. I'm gonna try and figure out, but this doesn't make any sense unless since they have a different name, they aren't applying it. I think that's the case because we applied it on the first one, and the image, when you change, it brings different properties. It is not applying the same variable to both. So if the brand image changes, it's also losing that variable. Let's do this. We're going to apply it on the component level. And that way, we don't really need to apply it here. We can apply it to the level of the component. Yeah. And that way it will work. So you apply it to the level of the image. That way the image has the visibility based on either desktop or mobile. And that way it will do the job of adjusting between the two of them. And we've done most of the things that we want, but I also feel like our brand colors could be slightly adjusted to better work in terms of accessibility between dark and light mode. So what can we do to actually do that? So we can use things like, and I'm going to go back to the theme collection, like opacity colors to create different layers on a style with different variables, and that way it would change the type of light we're working with on both modes. So in this case, let's say that, okay, we decided actually our interactive text is going to be dark on the light mode and light on the dark mode, or better yet, opposite, because we feel like the colors would work better like this. And what we can do is we can also create another color variable, and we can call it, for example, brand overlay. What this will do is right now we're going to say, okay, on light modes, we need our brand to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to go get a little bit darker by getting like a 20% black. While on the dark mode, we need our brand color to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to get a 20% white. And you can see that the opacity is here on the front. How would you use those colors then? We would come here on our field, and we would have another color here from the library, in this case, brand overlay. And then you can actually just save this as a new style called brand color, where you don't really have to worry about it. And now you can see that we have a darker tone and a lighter tone based on your theme without having to reinvent the whole theme. Of course, we're not using any type of multiply options, but you can also do that. You can come to your style and decide that the overlay should be applied in a very specific way. But for that, you would always have to be here in the blend mode and try to apply stuff like multiply, screen, and these things will change anyways. You can see it should exist here in the libraries. It doesn't, but it's still applying brand overlay, but you can select the blend modes here. In this case, let's say that I want to use overlay, and it's going to make the effect look a little bit softer, but you can already see that we have really contrasty buttons with darker colors on the light mode, and then lighter tones with dark text on the dark mode. And this is already a bunch of the stuff that you can do with variables. Philippe, okay, even is it possible to have one color and control its opacity with variables instead of having many different shades of the color in a design system? Thank you. Well, in theory, yes. Using exactly what I just did. The thing is, you can basically build a system where if you want to have multiple brand colors and use opacity to decide that, for starters, you probably would do something like, okay, this is like, I'm going to change from brand color to something like brand 500, which is a regular term for like intermediate color on a brand, right? Like it's the simplest tone that you have on the brand. Usually we use scales from 100 to 900. 500 is a good in between color, so it's used as the code for that color, for that brand color. And then you want to create more variables that can use those shades. You can do that by creating more overlays like this one, maybe adjust them using that scale, as I was saying. So, example, in this case, I'm going to use a brand 500. I'm going to make a brand 700 and a brand 300. Let's put it like that, okay? So what I want with these is, okay, brand 300 is like, oh, it shouldn't have any opacity at all because it's lighter or something like that. And then here it should have more opacity because it needs to get darker or lighter. And I'm going to put it at 0.20 to 40. And that means that you can now come here and create more styles. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to create a color style. I'm going to come to the libraries. I'm going to get my brand color, and I'm going to put the overlay libraries, and I'm going to get, in this case, brand 300, which again, it actually doesn't add anything. I probably shouldn't make it like this. My mistake. Sorry about that. But in any case, like, it tells you the story that I want to tell you, right? You can call it whatever you want, and in this case is brand 300 color style. You can organize them by whatever order you want, and then you want to create another color style, put brand color on the baseline, and then another layer with the brand 700, and you can call it brand 700. What this means is that now you have multiple color options. I'm going to just duplicate the button here and apply the different colors so you can see them working. So I'm going to make the top one brand 300 and the bottom one brand 700. Let me just adjust the styles here, reorganize them, make it so that it's 300. And you can already see that they are working all over the place here, with colors going from lighter to darker, and on dark mode, darker to lighter. So they kind of just complement each other. And if you just need to change your full system, and for a reason you have a new brand, you can literally come to your collection and say, oh, actually, our Friends of Figma brand now uses orange, and our Exploring brand now uses red. And they will all adjust on both brands and still keep those difference of tones without having to do them all over again. Now, this does introduce an issue, which is many times people don't want to do this because this generates color codes that you don't know what they are, or you really need to like store them beforehand. But this is a great way of creating really simple color systems without having to worrying too much about how you build them. It's something that many people use very easily, so that's always fine. And you can just use them this way. Um, Other things that you can also do, I haven't done, but for example, the content of the text, you can also change it per brand. So I'm just going to delete my extra buttons here because I don't want them. And I'm going to go to my local variables again on my brand collection. We can do things like the brand, let's call it the tagline. And then on Friends of Figma, it's like all about design fun. And then on exploring is we live for the thrill. And then we have a little intro text. So I'm going to call it brand intro and say we are a community of designers who share a lot of cool content. And then here on exploring, we're a brand for the thrill of, I don't know, jumping cliffs. Whatever we want to drop. So now what we can do is, again, using our card, because it's the main component, it's going to help. Here on the right, you can see that when you have your style applied, you can select apply variable. You can come here and choose whatever content you want to fill that. So in this case, I want the top one, which is the tagline. And then on the other thing, on the paragraph, I'm going to put the brand intro, and the content also changes per brand. And it's really simple to store these kind of tokens of content based on brand, for example, or based on products, based on a bunch of things. You can use this text information like this. Philip, you were opening your microphone. Not sure if you want to say something.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Then I probably was by mistake. No worries. Okay, so we're like 15 minutes away from 6 p.m. Oh, it was Yevon. You can also chat if you want to. I don't know if you're interested or not, but that's why we have the whole session open with cameras and microphones for everyone. One last thing that we can do that it's really fun and simple to show the power of how variables work right now, and it's actually something new, is as of I think last week or 2 weeks ago, Figma introduced the option to also change variable modes on prototype. So you can do a bunch of things with prototype, right? You can do stuff like, okay, if you click the button, then we go to prototype, and you add an interaction, you can say on click, set variable. This means that anything that we want, all good, Yevon, no worries. Everything that you want to change, you can change. So in this case, if I want to change whatever it says on the message, you can literally just click here, select the message that you want, and you want to set it to, haha, made you click it. And, well, it should have allowed me to write the whole thing, but it thought about it as a separate thing. I wanted to make a full sentence, so that's my mistake. Aha, made you click it. Now it's a full sentence. And what's going to happen is in any one of these, if we open our prototype, and I think we need to make this a frame inside a frame to work, so I'm just going to do it here. Our cards already have all of them the same interaction, which is if you click it, the message changes. So you can make content change based on this, but you can also change modes. In this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to come here, and instead of set variable, we're going to go to set variable mode, and we're going to say on the theme collection, we want it to work like this, where you can create, okay, we're in light theme, we want it to go to dark. Cool. You get here, click me, goes to dark mode. Now, if you want to build something like a dark mode, and I'm just going to go back and leave this for the content. If you want to build something like a dark mode, light mode button, which is simple, you can literally just build it somewhat fast. I'm going to build it here. I'm gonna use a little toggle design. Create this circle for my toggle button. I'm gonna get my icons out of a plugin that I love. So I want the sun. Them. Cool. Where is my sun? The bad thing about this plugin is that the icons always end up somewhere that you don't know where. So here it is. So in case you don't know, by the way, if you ever lose something like a component like this, if you do click on the icon on the left side of the layer, it will jump into the place that you're looking for. So if you're lost, you can always find yourself. So right now I have this little sun here, and then I'm gonna get a little moon. So instead of being this lucid icon sun dim, I'm gonna go lucid moon. Got a moon. Enter. Now it's here. I don't know why it went so far. And I'm gonna create a frame for the toggle button. Toggle. I'm gonna put it maybe about like 80 pixels or something. Give it a background color. And in this case, I'm gonna use like, I don't know, secondary text color because I don't want to create new ones. And I'm gonna make this sun a brand color because I think it works. Or better yet, let's make the toggle the brand color and the sun the interactive text color. And if you want to give it a little bit more of a texture, let's put it like that, you can use a plugin like Beautiful Shadows, which is a really cool plugin to generate shadows that are more complex, where you click the object and you kind of like design the shadow by using light. So it looks really cool, you can see. And it immediately adds some texture to the whole thing. Looks really cool. So we have a button there that it feels more clickable. We're going to turn this into a component, create a variant. On that variant, we're going to pull the icon up till the right. And then I'm going to replace that icon inside with this one of the moon and make it interactive text color. And that way we have the button here. If we also want to make it a little bit stronger, we can also use another color on the background so it kind of generates this effect. Or we can even flip it and make, for example, the background in the color of the brand, and then here with the secondary text, and you get this effect. Now that I think of it, I actually wanted this backwards. I wanted the moon on top and the sun on the bottom, but it's fine. It still works, and we have like 10 minutes. So what you do is you just make it so that when you click on one, it changes to the other, and you click it back, same thing. If you want, you can also use Smart Animate, although I don't think with different icons it's going to be perfect, but it's still going to do something cool. But what you can do is now when you go from the first icon to the second one, you can put set variable mode, and you're in light mode, so you want to go on the theme and set it to dark. And then from the second to the first one, you can come here, add another interaction, set variable mode, theme, light. So by doing this, every time that you put this into a component, and in this case, I'm going to put it inside my my card, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a redesign here using my auto layouts to not lose that much time. Auto, cool. You can see that it already is adjusting to brand colors and everything. Each and every one of these, if you come here now, you can turn on light and dark mode like this. Really fast, really simple. And again, the click me will change the content, and this will change between light and dark mode. So that also means that if you build a prototype with multiple pages, and we can also do that really fast. We can just drop, I don't know, an iPhone 15 here. I dropped the iPhone here. I'm just going to give it a brand color of the background, and I'm going to pull a copy of my card inside and center it. Let's say that when you want to go to a separate page, you come here, you connect this to the other page. If you do, well, I don't want it on drag. Actually, I want it on click. So I'm just going to remove that option and just going to do this. If you come here and you start your prototype, which by the way doesn't have a device, but I'm going to put it on the iPhone 15 Pro, which is the one that it is designed for. And you turn dark mode here. If you switch the page, well, I should have made a more interesting interaction here, so I'm just going to put the push interaction. And then on this one, we're going to make it the other brand. So it's Friend of Figma. We're going to make it exploring on the full card, maybe. So on the full frame, you can hem your layer. As I said, in any of them, you can do that. So I'm just going to make it exploring. So what's going to happen now is when you click the button, it's going to go to the other brand. But if you turn the dark mode and you come and you, again, I'm going to make the button go back. Give me a second here. Prototype. Select the button. You need to take that one tap down and you create a new connection. The animation, I'm going to make it push to the other side. If you turn on dark mode and you go back, dark mode still is active and you can see that the component keeps it. So it will make it so that if you want to do a prototype and if you want people to be able to test it in both light and dark mode, you can do that without having to redesign the whole thing, right? And in this case, for example, I'm using brand color, not the style, but the name, but I can even use like the 700 brand color, so like that darker background that I was talking about. And if you click on mode, you can see that it changes to the lighter one. So that's better contrast and everything. So all of this works really well. And you don't have to design and redesign all of your prototypes again if you use variables to build your system like this. So I've already did a lot of stuff on variables. We have about 7 minutes. I was going to talk a little bit about multi-edit, but before I switch to multi-edit, I would love to know if you, Philippe, or Yevon, or even Marina, who hasn't been saying anything, are interested in any other question about variables.
I think we can talk a little bit of the multi-edit, yeah.
Okay.
But it's great content about the variables. I'm loving it.
No, it's like variables are really simple to build. And again, we built one component and two interactive components here, right? Like we didn't really have to build a gigantic library of elements to be able to do this. And with three styles for text, three style for colors, and a couple of other things, we just created a bunch of different designs without having to reinvent the wheel, right? So simple enough. So multi-edit. Multi-edit, on the other end, is a little bit simpler in a way. But it's a solution just so you know that this starts to work like this. So maybe I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna copy my card here. I'm gonna drop it and I'm gonna separate the components. I don't want it to be connected to anything because the full idea of using multi-edit is when you have to edit a bunch of stuff really fast and you don't want to have to select everything, you can do it. And it doesn't necessarily need components. So at this point, none of this is a component. So in the past, if you wanted to change, for example, the image on all of them, be it one property or another, you would have to go and select each one of them by hand. With multi-edit, if the elements are more or less similar, you can do something like come here and select matching layers, and it will immediately select all of them. So you don't really need to wait. And if you prefer to still use the shift, if it has matching layers and you click on shift, you're going to notice that the images get a subtle outline in blue. That means that when you want to select anything else, it's just going to select whatever matching layers exist. And it's not going to go and immediately select everything else. So we can easily find a bunch of these things, edit them by creating, for example, rounded corners really fast. But the same thing for, let's say that we want to change content. At some point in time, all of these have, for some reason, different content, right? So I'm gonna just switch the collections here on the brand so that this one has the other content, so that I can just come back and then I put this here, and then this one says lorem ipsum, and this one says for some meaning you are testing out the information, and this one said break it. I don't know, something like that, dude. Just so it's 2 lines. If you wanna change the content of all of these, Now it's not going to be as easy to select matching layers because the content is different. But if you select all of them, you're going to get a second option called multi-edit text, which is also part of the multi-edit suite. And it will give you the option to edit one text on one place. And it will just change everything else on all of them. So at this case, we want a brand new title, and it will change on all of them really fast. Um, this is cool. It's simple enough to work with. It's a great tool for mostly the exploration phase of things when you guys are trying to build but don't want to worry too much about components and cards and styles and things like that. You can just select a bunch of things somewhat fast, and you can then edit the information on all of them. If you're building with stuff that looks more or less the same, it will work. But even if that's not the case, it will still speed up, especially on object selection, everything like that. And then also, if you for some reason want to do things like, oh, I need to change this position on all of cards, it will change it. If you need to rotate it, for example, it will rotate. So all of these things will act the same on all of the cards, all of the elements, all of the frames that you build. It's just a matter of you selecting what you want to do with them and really easily do that changes without needing to create components and still be able to design fast and play around and build your system using multi-edit. And then Marina, hi Bruno, I'm really enjoying variable font for fonts is a really game change and saved a lot of time switching between desktop and mobile designs. Now I'm starting to learning using them. Thank you for all of these examples. You're welcome, Marina. That's what this session is all about. That's why the doctor opens the office. It's to help everyone with their heels. And if that was a problem, I hope that now it is not, and you get out of here with a clean bill of health. So that's mostly it for multi-edit. The use cases tend to be around this process of exploration. They still allow us to do stuff like for some reason we have the collections here, like the brands or even the dark and light theme stuff. It will still allow you to do that. Like if we do change text here, it will still allow us to edit text on all of them and really fast say whatever we want, and we will keep the other stuff working, right? In this case, styles and everything like that are still available and easy to use. And the same with objects on top here, like they are still built the same. So if we want to change something from them, from styles to, let's say that we don't want them to be on the edges and we want them to be closer to each other, it will still work. It will still understand that these are the same objects, and it will help us build really fast without needing those components. Once we have started making decisions, then it's better to start creating components, but this is that really early stage tool that will help anyone just speed up their work. And that's it, unless you guys have any other questions, because variables and multi-edit was the theme for today, but we are always open to any other questions of doubts that you have, like the first one that I answered from Given about color palettes. So I don't know if any one of you guys has any other questions, but we're here to answer them. So
I think I'm good for today. But it was
good.
great. It was great.
Happy to have helped. It's these sessions are made to be chill and open for you guys to just join us. Next one is going to be in Portuguese in about 2 weeks. Okay, multi-edit has to have the same name file to be recognized. I don't believe it needs to have the same name file, actually. I believe it has to have the same name structure, the same document structure. So in this case, well, actually it does. Now that you mention it, actually it does. But if you select it, it will still act as a multi-edit feature. Like if there's something else that you want to select that doesn't have the same name, like this one that is frame 1 and the others that are frame 2. But if it's called frame 2 and it has the button and the toggle and it feels like the same thing, it will immediately select all of them. If it has a different name, like now where I change this to frame 01, now it doesn't work because you can see that it doesn't have any other that are matching to this one. But if you select the others and then shift click on this one, they still allow you to do the same type of edits and edit all of them at the same time. It's a speed up feature, but it's not Again, the same as having components. It just tries to figure out what are the same elements that you have on your layout and help you speed up the change on all of them. Okay. Okay, guys, 6 p.m., time to close the office. Thank you all for joining me today. As I said, we're going to have a new episode in about 2 weeks. And after that, we're going to pause a little bit because the date for the second episode in English would end up being during Config, so Figma's conference. And we would prefer to maybe do one of these after Config, focused on all of the new cool stuff that it's coming out of the conference. So we'll be publishing the next date really soon. Again, it's going to be the Portuguese edition, so the whole stream is going to be done in Portuguese. For those who are not as comfortable with speaking English, in Portugal or Brazil, it's always a good option. And we'll be here to help you guys with your questions. In terms of theme, we'll be announcing it as soon as we announce the next date. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and hope to see you soon somewhere online or in one of our live meetups.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Appreciate your whole content.
No worries. Happy to help. Bye, everyone.